it's time for an Analysis in Chains exclusive interview. Hi, everyone. We've got an exciting interview for you today. We've got one of the co-founders of Blockchainpartner joining us, Antoine Yeretzian. Did I pronounce that correct, Antoine?
Yeah, perfect. And very nice jingle, by the way.
Thank you. I made it myself. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you for joining us. So, Antoine, you are a co-founder of Blockchainpartner. Blockchainpartner, as I understand it, is fairly prominent in France, working with some of the larger companies in order to develop customized blockchain solutions. Can you tell me how you got started with Blockchainpartner? How did you come up with this idea?
Actually, Blockchainpartner is the result of two startups, which both started in 2015. So you had on one side Blockchain France, which I co-founded with some friends of mine back in business school, and we were like very interested in crypto, obviously, and we said to ourselves, okay, but there was nothing in French, about Bitcoin and yeah, mainly Bitcoin and all the blockchain stuff. So we decided, why not let's start a website and then do some training in French. That was the basic starts. And then, in 2 years, we did a bit of work because we starting to do consulting for big companies. And by doing consulting, we met another startup that was called Labo Blockchain. That was a startup with only developers, like blockchain developers. The Labo Blockchain was founded by Adrien Lafuma and Emilien Duton, who were like deep in Bitcoin since 2012 or 11, I couldn't say. So they already started two companies. The one that was Master Exchange, it was on the first European exchange back in time, but it didn't scale well. And so we decided to merge the two companies in May this year, so 2017. And now we're like 11 people, and we do mainly training. Actually, we do all the every blockchain related, how to say that, advisory and consulting development. So we do training, we do like workshops for brainstorm all the stuff. We do acculturation, we do proof of concepts, we do implementation, and we also do, as we added a legal department in our startup, so we also do legal stuff like audit and consulting. So that's what we do. In the meanwhile, we published a book, we did several conferences. For example, we gave a hand to the organization of the EdCon conference back in Paris. So actually, we do everything that is cool and blockchain related and that we like doing, or at least we try.
Yeah, and when you guys got started, there was no other blockchain presence in France, right? Have you seen a lot of competition crop up since you started, or are you still sort of the lion in the den?
Actually, there were like little startups, mainly Bitcoin related, that were fighting hard to gain visibility, but it was, beginning of 2015, it was a bit difficult. So we did have some of them, but they weren't big. And now, yeah, totally, we have a lot of blockchain related startups in France, mainly focused on a product for the and all of them do a bit of consulting, but that's not their main activity. It's mainly, it's as usual, you develop a product, but the market is not educated and you need money, so everybody is doing consulting, by the way. And also because big corporation, they don't understand yet Bitcoin and blockchain very well. It's getting better and better, but it's difficult. So
When you got started, and even now, you're dealing with larger companies. Now, you're different than the other companies that we've had on to interview, in that your target clients seem to be larger ones: BNP Paribas, the Paris airport, SCNF. Have you dealt mostly with what types of solutions are you dealing with these large companies? Is it mostly going to be supply chain, or is it going to be data integrity, or are you doing tokenization at all?
What is interesting, I think, is that depending on the timeline, the sectors are evolving and the demand is also evolving. At the beginning, it was only for training, and it was mainly training and workshops for like finance and insurance. No, finance and insurance, they are more mature, so they asked for proof of concept. That would be 2016. And now they are going for big projects and implementation around stuff like cash transfer or or I don't know, or ledger for like stock options, stuff like that. And other sectors like car manufacturer or airports or like companies like Air France are more interested in the as you say, supply chain. I would say traceability for equipment, for assets. So that would be also the second. So first, big finance part, then something more like about traceability. That would be the two major demand. We also do a lot of something that is, I would say, very basic, but also very well fitted for blockchain and well fitted for big companies that want to have a first meeting with blockchain without going too deep, for example, in cryptocurrency. So we do a lot of time stamping, so you check the integrity of database or other documents by time stamping it into one of the public blockchain. So we do it a lot through Chainpoint and stuff, Merkle trees. That would be the first demand, and no more and more, but I think it's global. We have demand of less bigger companies for ICOs and tokenization, but that would be more
So
recent.
none of the big companies are going for their own ICO yet.
No. I mean, when you are a startup, you can go for an ICO because you have nothing to lose, right? When you are a big company, and this big company is under a lot of agreement from, for example, the Banque de France or all the regulatory instances, you can take the risk for, I don't know, maybe gaining 10 million euros. You can take the be too a risk for the other 90 million euro you get every day from banks and all the stuff. So no, not yet, but they are interested into it. So especially the banks, and at least one of the big four, big four auditing company is trying to address these markets by saying, "Hey, we can help you through the ICUs and stuff like that." So it's interesting because at least they watch it.
It sounds as though a lot of the larger companies are still a little bit nervous about blockchain. Is that accurate? Like they're sort of interested, they want to sort of test the water, but they're are they really seeing it as the future, or are they just sort of cautiously poking at it?
Depends of the companies, depends of the management, depends of everything. You do have several cases. You have the guys that are not convinced at all, but that do blockchain just because the competitors are doing blockchain. So they just pocket and it's okay. You have people that want to gain traction through the hype and do blockchain because it's hype, because it's big for the moment. So you just do blockchain. It's cool. And you have also ambitious guys that say, "Hey, I'm in charge of innovation. I will just do blockchain so I can show that I am at the cutting edge of innovation." And finally, you have the guy that say, "Okay, blockchain is one part of this big innovative future we are being in several years. So we need to be ready. And these guys are pretty rare, but it's very interesting to work with them because they are like fighting against their whole organization to make them understand blockchain is important and crypto are important. So it totally depends. I would say, yeah, we have like in our clients, we do mainly clients that are either convinced that blockchain is important or that need blockchain for internal purpose. We don't judge, right? As soon as we do real blockchain, because sometimes we are even asked to do like centralized blockchain you can modify afterward. And at this moment we say, no, no, thank you. but we really have demand for stuff like that, yeah.
We totally want a blockchain, but we want no blocks and we want it to run on one node.
Exactly.
Can you do that?
Yeah, that seems crazy, but yeah, some people do that. And also, we do have the problem that sometimes we begin with like a few guys that are convinced by the blockchain ideology. I mean, openness and distributed and all the stuff. So we go first for blockchain application, blockchain solution that works well. And then when you go for further iteration, when you include, for example, legal stuff, and when you include the legacy system, at the end, you see that as everything else is centralized, sometimes it's difficult to have a totally decentralized piece into that big centralized monster. And we had to stop one project, for example, that was very promising because we couldn't. I mean, the decentralized piece couldn't fit in the big centralized monster. So but we had to say, okay, that's the whole point of a proof of concept. So we proved that the concept doesn't work, and we stopped that. We stopped there, but it's not that simple to implement, and it's not. I would say it's not pure ideology because we did work with people that were convinced that decentralized and openness is good for their company, but are the whole ecosystem around it is centralized. It's very, very, very difficult to go for decentralized, at least if you don't decentralize all the stuff, and you can't decentralize a big monster like that in one snap. Like,
no, I guess it would change their whole business model in some cases.
Exactly. Exactly. That's one of the leverage we have that we explain. I mean, for me, every company is working in an ecosystem, and what we have for the moment, if you are a third party, if you have a trusted third party, for the moment you are centralizator, right? That's how it works. If you have the trust, then you centralize stuff. What we say that in a blockchain world, we wouldn't do that. I mean, if you are really a third party, if you have the trust of the whole ecosystem, then you are no longer centralizing, but you are animating. I mean, you are injecting the proper data into the system. You are auditing the system. You are organizing. Maybe you are taking part of the governance, but you are no longer centralizing. And by the way, if you can do that properly, you still make money because you are like, we still need you, right? Because you are trusted. So we need you to inject proper data. You need you for the Oracle. We need you for a lot of stuff. So you are still needed. You can still make money, but you are no longer centralizing. And centralizing, it's highly cost. It's a high cost. So there could be profitability in decentralized ecosystem, but you have to implement it and launch it. It's complicated.
I can see why you would need to do re-educating workshops. That's a very different mindset than most big companies are used to operating under.
Totally. Very difficult. And another point that is difficult with why working with big companies and trying to actually achieve something is that you need not only to convince the company, but also the whole ecosystem. And this is pretty difficult because it's long, naturally.
Yeah, well, I imagine that a lot of the work is done for you in the fact that blockchain keeps appearing in the news.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good point. But the bad point is that most people that speak about blockchain don't have a clue about what it is. So I would say it's 50-50, right? Good awareness, but bad understanding.
Isn't it just Bitcoin?
No. You know, Bitcoin, that drug. Don't speak about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You don't want to speak about Bitcoin. No. That's bad. That's the evil.
No, when you're dealing with this type of development, are you using mostly Ethereum to develop for the larger companies, or are they a lot of them using something that's more big company oriented? Like I know that Intel and Microsoft have their own solutions. Or like is the importance of the name important to these guys, or is it the opposite? Are they wanting their own blockchain, their own crypto algorithm entirely?
For the moment, we do mostly Ethereum, even if we did stuff on Ripple, NXT, Corda, which is not blockchain, but still. We tried also Hyperledger because, very agnostic. So we try everything and then we say, okay, this works well for what we are going to implement. And most of the time, Ethereum is the one because it's the most mature. It's open source, so you can rely a bit more on it than on other systems. And there is a strong track record on that. And also, we do have good Ethereum developers, so it helps. Most of the clients or partner, they trust us on the protocol, and when we explain to them that it's open source, which means first it's cheaper, and secondly it has been checked and rechecked and rechecked by the community, then it makes lots of sense in I would say in a matter of security. But we do have some clients that tell us, okay, I don't want to hear about Bitcoin, and then we try to explain to them. But if they are like really deep into their ideological fight, we don't. We don't insist that much. So okay, for example, we do timestamping a bit about on Ethereum instead of Bitcoin, but it makes also sense because of the transaction fees. So and so Bitcoin, some of them don't want, and some of them do want to do stuff on Hyperledger, which is like that big consortium with especially IBM into it, and they are they do have a lot of visibility here in France, and even if people are not convinced it's the best protocol, they want us to work on it because they say, okay, everybody's gonna go for it. All the other banks, for example, are gonna work on it. So if it's the next standard, what would I invest in Ethereum if it's not gonna be the next standard? Then I will have to adapt my own system to them, and so it's a loss of money. And then we tell them, okay, but you know that after like 6 nodes, your Hyperledger system break, and they say, well, yeah, we will see, it will get better and better. And okay, so for the moment, I would say we do everything on Ethereum. Most of our thing on Ethereum. Sometimes we do have more appropriate stuff like Omni, but sometimes we're asked to do Hyperledger, and we work on it.
Have you played around with IOTA at all?
Not yet. We have watched it, and we haven't yet got the opportunity to work on it. And also, for my part, I would say, as we are not like very, very deep into IOTA, and as we do not have the track record we have on Ethereum project, it's difficult for me to go for a big client just wants to that just want security. When I do a blockchain project, I have again, a dozen of IT guys that just come in and say, hey, what about the security? So if I say to them, that's IOTA, most of it is open source, but the rest, I don't know. And by the way, it has just been launched 1 year ago. They destroy me. So so we are watching on it because as I said, we are very pragmatic, and we like protocol more than others, but we are not like focused just on one. So it's very interesting to watch, but we haven't yet done any project on that.
That brings me to my next question. What's your thought about the future of large company blockchain development? Is it going to be more focused on proof of work or proof of stake?
Or proof of stake, that's sure, for sure. I mean, basically, when we do, let's say, an implementation for traceability, let's take an example. What we recommend for the moment is we do a private network on Ethereum with Zk-Snark for the confidentiality, and we do proof of stake. Like that will be our current main implementation, because for the moment at least, most companies they don't want in the like private network. They don't want crypto. They don't want to hear about crypto for the moment. Even we explain to them, you know that the main part, right? You just have to get it at that moment. But okay, I mean, um, my conviction is it's they need time, right? They can't go for Bitcoin right now. When you are a big company, you need to take steps, and the first step is private network without crypto, and then you go for a more crypto-oriented network, and then maybe you go for public network. That's also why we work a lot of Ethereum network, because if you want then to go on public blockchain, the protocol layer is basically the same, so it's easier. If one time they want, if one day they want to switch to public protocol, they have the same layer, so it's okay. So yeah, it needs to take step and set. And for me, the future is like they're gonna adapt, and they're gonna understand also through ICOs, right? Because it's very buzzing around. They're gonna understand the cryptocurrency is important, and then other like consensus mechanism could be interested. But if you want my real conviction and why not a prediction, I would say that proof of work and proof of stake. I mean, it's what we have for the moment. It's brilliant invention, right? But in 10 years or 20 years, when we speak about decentralized protocol and decentralized consensus, we're going to see proof of work like the most brutal solution ever founded. And we will have like very elegant solution that do not consume this much electricity, that is not such a war between the ecosystem. That's my convention. There will be more and more consensus algorithm that will be developed and invented in the next 10 or 15 years. And I don't think proof of stake and maybe proof of stake, but proof of work and proof of stake will be the most used consensus mechanism in still 15, 20 years.
Well, we've already mentioned two protocols today that don't use either one. You know, you mentioned you worked with Ripple. We mentioned IOTA. You know, I'm sure you're right. We'll probably see a lot more come up over the next years. But it's just interesting to get the sense from your perspective. I want to just as we wrap up here. I wanted to wrap up with a couple of fun predictions. Are you invested at all into the crypto market personally?
A bit. Not that much.
A little bit? Yeah. A little bit, mostly Bitcoin, or do you have any pet projects, any ones altcoins that you like?
No. I'm very basic holding guy.
Great. So, the two questions I want to ask. So we've got another deadline coming up in the next few weeks with Bitcoin. With do you think there's going to be a hard fork with the SegWit 2 implementation? Do you think they're going to have yet another Bitcoin Cash like fork?
I don't know. I used to think that such thing wouldn't happen because it's like useless energy and useless. I mean, it's too complicated why not go for the most simple solution, right? But I mean, Bitcoin Cash did create a lot of value. I mean, at the end of the day. So maybe now the ecosystem has like an incentive to create a new fork, because I mean, that's part of the bubble we are currently living in. Every time you create a fork, you create more value than before. So for the moment, I mean, okay, you have a dilution of the calculation capacity. You have a dilution of the network, but at the end of the day, I mean, this is still creating value. It's even if it's has its consequences in terms of security and all this stuff. But so I would say no, they do have a track record and strong incitation to do stuff like that. So I wouldn't be too confident as I used to be that there won't be any hard fork. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess we'll see what happens, eh? All right, and the very last question is: you mentioned just now that that we're in a bubble. Do you think that bubble is going to continue to grow by New Year's, or do you think it'll burst before then? Bitcoin to the moon or no?
To the moon, I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure we still have a. I don't know. Prediction is always difficult, but let's say 1 year or 1 year and a half. Yeah, I'm not that worried for the moment, but it will totally burst at one moment. Also because it relies a lot on mode effect, especially in Asia, like in Korea. So a lot of people just bought Ether because they saw other people buying Ether. So it can be very, very quick to just burst. This should be very watched very, very strongly. I do have some Korean friends, and I watch on the social network just to make sure. So if we have like bad buzz, this could be a strong impact.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Antoine, for being on the show. Antoine Yeretzian, co-founder of Blockchain Partner. You can find his website at Blockchainpartner.fr. If you're a large French company, you're looking for blockchain services, he's the guy to call. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this Analysis in Chains exclusive interview.